Hi, I'm Em of M Doodles and Stuff. I mainly do influencer baby name predictions on TikTok and baby name consultations, and this here is where I do literally anything else. There's a lot of other stuff I want to talk about and do, and I figure maybe you do too. So this is where you're maybe doing laundry or dishes or working on a craft project, and I'm just here talking about stuff. And you don't really have to watch, you're like sort of listening, but we're kind of hanging out together. Nice, right? So there's always a doodle prompt at the end of Doodle Talk, and I'm so excited about this one from last time. It's gonna need some context. The previous video had the prompt, create your own depiction of Detective Nora Drew at a real-life historical event of your choosing. Okay, so let's give some context on what that is. You don't have to watch the previous video to enjoy this one, I hope. So how do I sum that up as cohesively as possible? Okay, in my previous video, I had said, I want a fresh new spin-off of the Nancy Drew computer games produced by Her Interactive, but I want it to be mystery-solving computer games set in history. So instead of playing as modern-day Nancy Drew, you're playing as her great-something grandmother named Nora Drew, that's not real. I made that up. There was a whole reason behind that name. So, okay, what real-life event in history did I insert Detective Nora Drew into? Well, we'll start here, start with the notebook. This is like my sketchbook, doodle book, note-taking, list-making journal. And I just finished it. I used up the whole thing and I'm feeling really good about that. So volume 3 is done, but I pulled it back off the shelf to find my preliminary sketch I did in here because I knew this one was gonna be complex. I knew. So this is just your basic little sketch. Here's the full-size one I did on the iPad. I chose the 1903 to 1904 construction of the world-famous Old Faithful Inn in Yellowstone National Park. Oh my gosh, you chose that too? That's crazy. What? What are the chances we both chose that? Oh my gosh. Okay, so look at it here. We're going to look at it again more closely, but we need to go back into history here. The Old Faithful Inn is a National Historic Landmark. It's still a functioning hotel. It's directly in front of the worldwide recognized Old Faithful Geyser in the world's first national park. Awesome. Credentials aside, it is just my favorite building I have ever been inside. Have you been? Have you been inside? The exterior is a delight, but here's a picture of the inside. And the inside is magic. It's the whimsy of it all. It's a ginormous log cabin with intentionally quirky alignment of like the window placements and the shapes of the logs because the architect R.C. Reamer, who is said to have wanted the asymmetry of the building to reflect the chaos of nature. He designed it with a treehouse in mind. Fun fact, R.C. Reamer, the architect, he was 29 years old when he did this. So if you're feeling like you haven't accomplished enough in your young life, you can now feel a little bit worse about it. Cool. Now, looking at this picture, it makes me feel like I'm wrapped in a blanket in a dream. Being there in person is remarkable. You've got the warm glow of the candlelight on the lodgepole pines and the massive fireplace of which a railroad historian wrote in 1905, quote, fires of big... Wait, should I be using a old-timey railroad voice for this? Okay, let's see what I got. Fires of big logs are kept going constantly in the large fireplaces, and every evening a massive specially made swinging corn popper is brought into play and the guests regaled with popcorn passed around in a large dishpan. So I recently watched Glass Onion, and I'm wondering if that affected my psyche of choosing an old-timey voice. Something to consider. There were popcorn nights. That was the point. They had cozy popcorn nights for the guests, and they would put a live band up in the balcony while guests danced below in the lobby. I love talking about and thinking about old-timey, Old Faithful Inn, because if you've been as a person in the now, it's great. It misses a little bit of that whimsy. They don't make popcorn anymore, I can tell you that. There's a lot of people. A lot of sweaty tourists. I mean, I'm sure through every era of people visiting, they've been sweaty. I just think there's more sweaty people there now. And it loses a little bit of its charm because of that. So I love thinking about it from back then, when there were fewer sweaty people and more popcorn. They almost built this hotel to be on trend with 1903 architecture, which would have been the Queen Anne style. You know, like, kind of think of a traditional dollhouse, a Victorian with little pointy towers and scallop trim and pastel colors. But thank goodness they went with R.C. Reamer instead. And this style was the birth of the National Park Service rustic style, now known simply as Parkitecture. If death is like Harry Potter and you go into your own personal limbo, like how he went to the train station, mine is Parkitecture. Thinking about death would feel a lot less of an existential crisis if I knew for sure there would be pine trees and candelabras. I go to the National Park Service website /Park History. Yes, this is now a history podcast. Quote, if Yellowstone National Park is the crown jewel of the park system, then the Old Faithful Inn is the crown jewel of its lodges. End quote. Slow clap. And then later continues on this PDF on this website, an absolute slay of a concluding paragraph I've ever seen in a PDF. I'm requesting my visual and audio editor, my husband, to make some sort of like really sick photo montage to go with this. I think it deserves it. This deserves not an old-timey glass onion railroad voice, but like, I need to make this really good. Okay. The Old Faithful Inn is a keeper of secrets. The wooden walls and floor sometimes creak and groan like lodgepole pines swaying in a Yellowstone breeze. Perhaps it will speak to you if you stop and listen with care. Few stories of the people that created and treasured the inn a century ago have been told. Inn tour guide Betty Hardy said it well. The inn is a building of history and a building of mystery, end quote. Historians hope to uncover more of these mysteries of the inn, but perhaps it is these untold stories that draw people to the bosom of the historic hotel. Now, I didn't pick this Nancy Drew, Nora Drew computer game concept to be here, knowing there was some mysterious vibe. Miss Betty, the inn is a building of history and a building of mystery. I didn't know going into this that I would get to that absolute slay. Yeah, I didn't know there was any mysterious vibes to the 1903 to 1904 construction of the Old Faithful Inn, and I'm happy to be here. I'm glad reading an 18-page PDF from nph.gov in my limited free time was worth it. I'll link it below. Now, despite it being one of the most beloved American landmarks, there's very little known about the building process and the people who built it. There's actually only 2 pictures from the entire building process. They know the materials used, the stone and the wood. They know they came from the area, but that's it. The entire foundation of the inn is rock foundation that they think was quarried from the cliffs of the nearby Black Sand Basin. That's so much stone, and they're not sure where it came from. Just like, look for the giant missing chunk of stone. They don't even have a record of the names of the woodworkers and other craftsmen involved. Slowly over time, they've discovered men's names carved into unseen beams of wood in remote parts of the hotel. Like, that's how they're learning about this history. Just like looking up at beams of wood and being like, oh, that must have been him. We never wrote his name down. That's so sad. So yeah, I need Nora Drew there on the scene. I want to experience the fresh, new, giant treehouse in the days of its creation. If you've played any Nancy Drew game, you know that you get to click around to explore places, you know? It's like, click, go down a hallway. Click again, go a little further. Click again, left, oh, there's a door, click the doorknob. You go in, or it's locked. Imagining that sort of gameplay in this scene makes me weak at the knees. Click, click, clickety, click, click. It'd be so good. Now, I see a few things we need to establish for the game, aside from broadly knowing it takes place during the 1903 to 1904 construction of the Old Faithful Inn. We need to know, 1, the plot, like the actual mystery at hand that Nora is solving. 2, we need to know like the areas of exploration. How many different locations can she click, click, click through? 3, who are the people that she can click, click, click and talk to? 4, what's the name of the game? Yes, okay, 1 is the plot. Yes, there is some actual mystery to the creation of the inn. Thank you, nph.gov. Though trying to find out the names of railroad workers who were perhaps on loan from the railway company to the Yellowstone Park Association isn't exactly tantalizing detective work. So we pivot. We pivot to the Crow's Nest. Of R.C. Reamer's creation of the enormous Old Faithful Inn lobby, it is the cherry on top. It is literally on top. You see those stairs? You go up, 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 where there's barely any glow of the candelabras remaining. You go 7 stories up. This open lobby is 7 stories tall. You go up to that tippity top to the Crow's Nest. Here's a quote about it. Under the northeast corner of the lobby's ceiling, Reamer and his workers built a little house and adorned it with crooked limbs in keeping with the style of the rest of the lobby. This little house has its own roof, hinged airy windows, and door. The enchanting quality of this quaint house, sometimes labeled the Crow's Nest, reminded yesterday's visitors of a childhood treehouse, real or imagined. So just put yourself here. You're out in nature. You're out in the forest of Yellowstone National Park. Inside a giant log cabin / treehouse said to have the asymmetry to reflect the chaos of nature. And then inside the very tippity top of this giant treehouse is a tiny treehouse. This is R.C. Reamer's Russian nesting doll. And you go boop, 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 and pull it out, and that tiniest little baby on the inside is this crow's nest. And, quote, popular belief is that he took special care to design the crow's nest according to a childhood fantasy of his. Or was it? No, I do want to believe the childhood fantasy thing, but we need a mystery for Nora to work with, and this is a good direction to take it. Why did R.C. Reamer really make the tiny little crow's nest up there? Now, he did have a reputation for some chaotic energy on the build site, forgetting to shave, sleeping in his clothes. Honestly, same, though by multiple accounts, he was also an alcoholic. A tortured artist type, you know? Pivot again, sorry. I don't want to take that route either. This is a Her interactive computer game with a target demographic of 11 to 14-year-olds. R.C. Reamer is not going to be an alcoholic tortured artist, but he is still extremely focused on this crow's nest more than any other part of the build. He's still 29 years old, and he's crazy handsome. 2. Where is Nora Drew capable of exploring in this game? I'm fine if they put their entire budget towards making the hotel interior as playable as possible. I need the hotel lobby, all 7 floors, the crow's nest, but also some of the hallways that extend into guest rooms. In this situation, the hotel's not done yet, so I want her to have free range to go wherever she wants into the rooms. Okay, maybe not all of them, but at least some of them, right? Though, we do need at least one exterior location that is playable in the game. And the very iconic thing that we have spent no time talking about here is the Old Faithful geyser itself. Ooh, I feel like being particular with timing would be a big part of this gameplay. Like, I feel like she'd have a pocket watch, and when you're playing, you've got like the little dashboard at the bottom of your screen, and you would always see the pocket watch down there because the anticipated eruption times are listed on a board in the lobby of the hotel. That's literally there in modern day. You can go see when Old Faithful is going to erupt. That's the whole point. So I like to think I'm like playing this game, there's like some complicated puzzle, and then I'm like, peace out, I'm going out to see the eruption. So you go out as Nora Drew to the outside, to the boardwalk, to see Old Faithful erupt. And at some pivotal plot moment, you need to be out there for the eruption. Whoa, what's that about? I don't know, I'm just making this up as I go. That's really good though. 3, she needs people that she can click and talk to. R.C. Reamer, obviously, he's 29 and very handsome, and I think they'd have some flirty energy, honestly. We can stick pretty close with history with some supporting characters. Larry Matthews, an Irishman, was the first manager of the inn. I think he'd be around prepping for the debut. Harry W. Child, a terrible name but a real person who was the president of the Yellowstone Park Association. And anytime you're reading on the history of Reamer and the creation of the hotel, you're reading about him a lot. So sure, he's there. More interested in the character of his wife, Adelaide, who, quote, reportedly oversaw the procurement of furniture, rugs, and curtains. The Yellowstone Park Company spent $25,000 to furnish the inn's lobby, balconies, porch, and original 140 rooms. She did that. Nice work, Adelaide. So, like I said, we know very few of the construction workers' names, but those are the main people that would have been there during 1903 to 1904. Oh, okay, fun idea. We really just need one for Nora to talk to during the gameplay. And this is so good. It's Albert Rock. Obviously, it's Albert Rock. Thank you again, nph.org/parkhistory. During the fall of 2000, a workman's signature was found in one of the inn's uppermost window frames. It was written in thick pencil, perhaps a carpenter's pencil, with the name Albert Rock and the date, May 7th, 1904. We have the receipts that Albert Rock was there, and he was probably a carpenter. The receipts are in the window. Okay, think about this. For the Deep Track History girlies playing this game, me and you, we notice that the character of Albert is always fiddling with a carpenter's pencil as he reclines in one of Adelaide's newly acquired hickory rocking chairs directly beneath a window frame. That's a little Easter egg for me and for you, because we know the real history of Albert Rock because we're having this discussion right now. That's really good. That's like a really good Easter egg. This needs to exist. Now here's a curveball of a real-life visitor of the Old Faithful Inn in 1903. Theodore Roosevelt, Mr. President. He loved Yellowstone and played a crucial role in what the park is today, so yeah, he's in the game. I'm craving some equality. The game needs some more female characters involved. The easy choice would be to add in Edith Roosevelt, Theo's wife, because she did come on the trip and even suffered a back injury when thrown from a horse. But I don't love the idea that we only get female figures when they're presented as so-and-so's wife, the president's wife, the park owner's wife. So let's get a little more fictional. I'd like a female character who's indigenous to the area because people have been a part of Yellowstone's history for over 11,000 years, and really all the new discoveries of the geysers, waterfalls, wildlife through the 19th century were just new to white people. Today there are at least 27 different tribes who can trace their roots back to the land or the resources on the land we call Yellowstone. Many of them would have traveled into the area seasonally, while only one tribe is currently recognized to have stayed through the harsh winters, therefore deserving the recognition of being called Yellowstone's only permanent residents. These people are the Tukudika tribe, sometimes referred to the sheep eaters tribe or the mountain people. They closely followed the migration patterns of bighorn sheep, hence why they would have remained nearby even throughout the winter. They were the last tribe living traditionally in the entire Rocky Mountains until the late 19th century, when they were forcibly removed to reservations with the Shoshone due to false accusations by white settlers. Of course. According to sources, the population of the Tukudika mountain sheep eaters is fewer than 6,000 today. 6,000 people. If that number alone isn't sombering, compare it to the number of average visitors that come to Yellowstone National Park per year. You ready? 4.86 million. Million with an M. If a well-rounded story of Yellowstone is going to be told, even in a fictionalized mystery-solving computer game, it deserves to have a Tukudika or other indigenous voice tell their story as part of the narrative, even though the truth is that nearly all of their people would have been killed or kicked out by the time of construction within the park. I wish I could give a Tukudika woman more of a story and a real name, but there's nothing more out there about them. In this fictionalized story, we have these really concrete, legitimate facts about a white male U.S. president, a company owner, the architect, even the name of a white male hotel manager from 1904. We even have the name of one lowly white male construction worker. But if we want to bring in some powerful female figures to this story, aside from the president's wife, the business owner's wife, we have to make them up. And that's how it is, isn't it? So, here's the game. We've got the game. The very last thing, what is it called? In my previous video, I decided to lean into the most common Nancy Drew game title theme. Alliterations. I love alliterations. The Captive Curse, Alibi in Ashes, The Deadly Device, The Labyrinth of Lies. Those are actually all games I've never played. I loved the early 2000 games. What can I say? I've really never even heard of those ones, but they've got good alliterations in their titles. So I've landed on Illuminating the Old Faithful Inn. Illuminating the inn, that's fine. It feels a little lackluster. Illuminating the Old Faithful Inn. My one beef here with myself is that the titles never seem to start with a verb. But once I had picked out illuminate as the key word there, I knew it was the one. I knew it was the one. Not only is the inn illuminated by the warm glow of candelabras, the word illuminate also means to clarify or explain. That's exactly it. You can see here in the picture now, a bit back in the darkness is a shadowy figure climbing up into the crow's nest. Nora, go illuminate it. I want this to be real so bad. I can visualize all of this so clearly in my head, and I'm deeply sorry if it's not translating and you're just doing your dishes feeling very lost and confused. But at least your dishes are almost done. I like to think that Yellowstone Park Association Harry W. Child, still that name, I feel like he would be a disgruntled sort of old man, like the Monopoly guy, but yuckier, sweatier probably. I like to think that he was disgruntled when this curious and optimistic redhead showed up and tried to make her feel embarrassed. Nora Drew shows up to the lobby and he pretends to give her a warm welcome and goes, "Miss Drew, these clothes you're wearing won't do. This isn't some schoolgirl's picnic out here in Yellowstone Park." And she attempts to answer him, but he interrupts. "You know, we've got some old gear here that might just be your size. Mr. Matthews," the manager of the inn, "will you see that these things make their way up to Miss Drew's room in the morning? She's going to need them before tomorrow." He winks, and Mr. Childs winks his eye and pats Nora's head. She's fuming, and sure enough, we go click, click, click. She gets to her room, and there on the bed is a Boy Scout uniform. A note from Mr. Child lays atop it and says, fitting. The sexism, the ageism. Do you think Harry W. Childs is the bad guy in the end? I don't know. This is all happening in real time, you guys. I don't know if he's the bad guy, but he is, like, he's a bad guy. I don't know if he's the bad guy. So you'll notice in the doodle, Nora Drew is wearing this fantastic androgynous look, very appropriate for exploring, but not wanting to give in to his taunts. She is wearing that Boy Scout vest proudly the whole time. Fun fact, when I was a young adult, my dad worked as a tour guide in Yellowstone National Park, which means I got to visit him often without having to pay for lodging. Finding a place to stay in Yellowstone is complicated, scarce, and expensive. So I was really lucky. I got to go on more frequent short trips to the park rather than just like one big trip of a lifetime that I think is very typical of most Americans. It was really awesome. Is it my favorite national park? No, but it is a treasure. I have never seen the show Yellowstone, but I remember feeling confused and bummed out when it released and realizing that it has nothing to do with the park. And then the Yellowstone prequel came out, starring my most favorite mom and dad, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. The show is called 1883, and I think by now it's very clear that I really love that chunk of history. It's very braid girl history. Yeah, I've never seen it though. Reason 1, I don't have Paramount Plus. What is that? Reason 2, I don't know if I would like it. Like, would I like it? I wouldn't gravitate towards that type of show typically, but I like the vibe. Can I like have that vibe without any conflict? I don't know. Now this vibe clearly runs in the family because my sister currently lives in a log cabin in the woods. Not in Yellowstone, but last month she asked me to make her some business cards for her creative endeavors, and we used the fact that she lives in a log cabin as the main aesthetic for the business cards. Turned out really cute. In brainstorming for that, I found myself on Pinterest typing in the phrase vintage log cabin aesthetic. And I loved the search results of that so much that I would actually say that's why I ended up doing this doodle. And then I made a whole mood board in preparation to do this doodle because just simply it was so enjoyable. I'll link it below. It's a really nice cozy treat on the eyes. I've realized one big reason that I love vintage log cabin aesthetic and the bigger picture, Parkitecture, is that because there's still a presence of color. Vintage log cabin aesthetic and homesteader aesthetic are similar but totally different. Homesteader aesthetic, as thoroughly discussed in Doodle Talk episode 1, Little Women Influencers, is all about beige. White walls, unbleached linen, very pale, neutral wood stains. The most idyllic homesteader aesthetic scene I can put together in my head is like a faded white American farmhouse, aside a golden prairie. I'm in a linen apron collecting white linen laundry from a clothesline. Yeah, that sounds right. The most idyllic vintage log cabin aesthetic scene I can put together is a rich brown log cabin with a sturdy red door tucked into a green forest of pine trees. I'm in a multicolored flannel shirt carrying a royal blue canoe to the edge of the nearby pond. Vintage log cabin aesthetic. It has the core of the color wheel, like its primary colors, but ever so slightly dulled from sun exposure and time. I'm scrolling through my Pinterest board again just because it makes me so happy. So many things with the Swiss flag are on it for no reason. There's snowshoes, there's hunter green lanterns, there's flannel and plaid and stripes and patterns and rich colors all coexisting in the same space, all lit by candles. What's not to love about this? Two thoughts are coming to mind right now. One, the return of Pinterest. I saw a post somewhere recently that said, Twitter, dead. Facebook, ruined. Instagram, getting worse by the day. TikTok, absolute trash. Pinterest, unchanged, old, reliable. Yes, it's so true. Now here's the thing. A few years ago, I wasn't really going on Pinterest anymore because it felt like all the content was kind of stuck in 2012. Do you know what I'm talking about? If I tried to look up DIY hairstyles, it may still give me chunky boho fishtail braids with a flower crown, you know? But something has changed. Pinterest is largely unchanged, but it's now more with it, and I appreciate that. This is my #1 Pinterest advice. I know you've been dying to hear it. The thing about its algorithm is that whatever you are pinning is going to fill your homepage, your like explore page, whatever they call it, the main page you go on when you enter the app or the website. Before I did my dying pregnant Bella Swan Halloween costume a few years ago and had a secret Pinterest board of Twilight pictures for guidance and inspiration, my homepage was ruined for probably 6 months. I would go on Pinterest and it would just churn out Twilight fan art. And it wasn't what I was looking for at that time, you know? That I didn't need that. So here's my advice. You gotta have a board, even just a secret board, just called My Vibes. Mine is called My Vibes with the little squigglies on either side of the words because, one, I like doing that, and because then when I'm going to pin something on that board, rather than trying to find it in the alphabetical list of all my boards, when you like click pin and then it's like, which board do you want to pin it to? They list them alphabetically, but if you got your little squiggles on the ends, I know I just have to scroll down to the very, very end because it's not alphabetical, it's a symbol, so it's at the end. This My Vibes board, it's secret, and it's a sacred space. It's anything that resonates with me. It can be absolutely anything, but I'm also very particular about it. It's not every day that something makes it onto the Vibes Pinterest board. Sometimes it could be an illustration of a fairy child or a Scandinavian cottage or a quote or fashion or a craft project or just whatever sparks joy on another level. Makes me pause. Instead of the eternal scrolling of the phone, I've stopped to look and think about this thing. This board of mine is a secret, sorry, but let's see what I've pinned recently. This is so good. I could do a video completely just talking about this board, but here's my most recent 3 pins. Put them here. Aren't they lovely? Oh, these are my vibes. Oh, the whole point of telling you about the Secret Vibes Pinterest board was that you need to have one of these that you occasionally but consistently are pinning to, because then your explore page is always good. It's always feeling like it's for you. Right now, I am occasionally pinning to this board. I made a 2023 vibes board for the new year. I have a house vision board for buying a house, hopefully this year. And I have an Eras Tour outfit inspiration board. And let me tell you, my Pinterest Explore page is thriving. I feel so happy and peaceful when I'm there. And those are words that I would not typically associate with any app usage. Now my second thought, going back to the 1904 Yellowstone aesthetic board, which I have made public for you to enjoy, is that it's not just color that makes this different than the beige homesteader vibes. Beige homesteaders, homeschoolers, earthy mamas on Instagram are always minimalists. And the thing I'm realizing is that the vintage log cabin aesthetic absolutely leans towards maximalism. Think about this. The pendulum swung hard and fast from skinny jeans to wide leg jeans. And I would love to see this next generation take down the impossible expectation of minimalism. Like, yeah, Laura Ingalls Wilder would have had one solitary shelf with exactly one book and one cherished family photo because that's all they had. They were very minimalist. But I think I'm more suited for the clutter of the vintage log cabin. I am personally a bit more of a Paul Bunyan type anyways. I have broad shoulders and love flannel and regularly wear hiking boots as part of my everyday outfits because they're simply practical and comfortable. Me and Paul, we love our trinkets. You know, we love our candles, pine trees, Minnesota, being warm and cozy. Cleaning is not our top priority or skill set. We genuinely enjoy hiking and we vibe with a vintage log cabin. I remember that when I had compiled my big list of Little Women influencers, there was one on my radar that I had to nix because she had too much color in her aesthetic. I want to go back to her page and see if she more aligns with 1904 Yellowstone. Okay, her name is Kelly Haven Sickle, and her Instagram bio says Christian, wife, mama, writer. Wheat emoji, living in rural Ohio. Decrepit shack emoji. I didn't know that one existed. Restoring our old home. Red heart emoji. Love for God and antiquity. So here's a glimpse of her feed, and for comparison's sake, here is one of the Little Women influencers from episode 1 who had the Instagram bio of neutral, vintage, and pine are my favorite words. Look at Kelly's warmth and color and vibrancy, the contrast and all of it compared to this beige influencer. As I read more closely, I feel like I would say Kelly still checks all the boxes of a homesteading, homeschooling, biblical womanhood influencer, but I have to acknowledge that the visual draws me in so much more because it's not just beige. I'm excited to be here even though she's using hashtag feminine not feminist. It goes without saying that her red hair is a foundation. Maybe she would have been a beige influencer, but with such vibrant hair, her feed would never truly fit the neutral mold, and so what's the point of trying? Something I notice immediately is that she's a 4-season influencer. She's sharing lush summer, pretty winter, and most importantly, pictures of ugly winter. When there's no snow, it's just all brown and gray. No one does this. Think about it. Most influencers go all through the winter without sharing any exterior photos unless it's at the ski resort or on a trip to the beach. As crazy as it sounds, beige influencers in particular don't share pictures taken outside. Go look. They really don't. They don't take pictures outside, especially in the summertime, on their Instagram feeds. And I personally believe that is because, one, it would clash with the grid. Like, imagine if amidst this neutral, vintage, and pine are my favorite words feed actually had a lush green pine grove mixed in with this feed. It would stick out like a sore thumb. And 2, if beige influencers tried to use their typical photo presets that make the whole thing very warm-toned, neutral, grainy, you know what I'm talking about. If they use that on a lush green summer photo, the greens would turn into a disgusto shade of brown, and it would just look bad. So they just don't. Those Instagram presets, they're only selling them to be intended to be used on white-walled interiors. Kelly here is firmly a braid girl. She's not a bow girl or a horse girl. Beige homesteader influencers are also braid girls, but not like this. Can we just talk through a few of my favorite photos from Kelly's feed? My goodness, yes we can, because the whole freaking point of this video's existence is that I just want to talk about stuff, and you're here to listen, and I know my husband would rather walk into a pine grove forest and never come back than hear my detailed thoughts on the screenshots of the photos of a Christian wife and mama in Ohio who loves God and antiquity. But the great irony is that he's going to have to listen to these thoughts more than any of you, because he edits the videos. Screenshot 1. Wow, I am now ready to uproot my family to rural Ohio. Nope, don't ever try to say that again. Rural Ohio. That's what this picture's doing to me. Compositionally, she has nailed it. The red hair, the orange top, and the red vest are all perfectly framed within the darkest shade of the green of the pine trees in the background. There is a clear visual contrast of light and color. We see a bit of the historic farmhouse in the background. I love the perfectly symmetrical wooden fence in the foreground of the picture, in the corners. I know it's staged. She's barefoot with a hoe in one hand and a book in the other. The only thing that gives me pause is knowing that she is very, very Christian, and the quaint little garden path is kind of making the shape of a cross. I don't think that's intentional, but I can't help but think, like, did she bury a witch here? Screenshot 2. Kelly and son tumbling and laughing amidst a wildflower meadow of purples and yellows with vibrant blue sky and white puffy clouds. I feel so happy. This is great. Screenshot 3. Kelly cuddling a baby goat. This is what I mean about being a 4-season aesthetic. This looks like early spring, especially coupled with the baby goat, right? That time of year is all about baby animals and fresh green earth and flowers, but really, it's mostly just dead and brown still, and Kelly is showing that truth, that vulnerable truth. I love the red on red outfit. I'm just delighted by all of this. Screenshot 4. You really need a glimpse of the interior. Absolutely. This is the historic farmhouse. This view looking towards the stairwell is where Kelly does most of her pictures, and I do not blame her. I love that it's a dark wood stain instead of all just painted white. There's dark floors, dark wood table, but then look at the quality of light. You can tell that the sun is setting through the back window as this picture is being shot, and I applaud her timing to make this happen, especially when there's toddlers involved. We've got a lit candle on the table with pumpkin, old-timey mug, a bowl of apples. There's no detail left out, but just the warmth, you guys. I feel the temperature of this room and my heart increasing as I look at this. Screenshot 5. Similar. It's cozy. There's warm candlelight as Kelly peers outside with mug and nightgown. This one has a bit of the same energy as our braid girl icon, Kirsten the American Girl doll. So that gets my stamp of approval. Screenshot 6. We're going candlelight outside. There's apron, barefoot, pensive closed eyes, summer forest at dusk. Oh, something I should mention is that every single photo has an extremely long caption that is essentially a sermon. And let me just say, like, I know my way around Christianity, and I have no clue what she's saying in any of her captions. She's clearly a writer and very pious, and there's lots of metaphors, lots of candle metaphors, but I get confused. I don't know what she's talking about, so I just look at the pictures. Screenshot 7. I am charmed. Oh my goodness. Kelly and her husband are kissing in a window frame beneath ivy encroaching on the open space. It looks like she's holding a flower that he just picked and handed to her. He's in a vest. There's an unconventional angle with the open window frame partially obscuring them. I love it. She definitely had her tripod and had to really carefully plan this one out. Screenshot 8. We've got another window composition. She likes windows and candles, and I would assume the caption sermons here are metaphors for those concepts. The red flowers beneath the window echoing the vibrant red candlelight and hair and red dress. It's A+ work, Kelly. And then the rest of the scene has so much cool blue. The house, it feels like dusk. It makes the warmth of the red feel even warmer. That is called color theory. Yes, I do have a degree in photography. No, I'm not making that up. That's actually a true thing. I do. I really do. Okay, screenshot 9. Screenshot 9 is a bit of a thinker. We've established by now that these are curated scenes. They feel like glimpses of a novel. And this scene feels like the part where Papa gets typhoid fever. Kelly is kneeling in a linen nightgown beside a fancy old couch where her husband is laying with his head skewed to the side, eyes closed, open book on his chest as if he drifted off mid-passage. There's a cupboard behind them, opened perfectly to expose quilts, candles, jars of jam, and woven baskets. This picture is so completely different than a beige influencer sharing swipe-up codes for 10% off Montessori sad toys, you know? This is Typhoid Cosplay, and I'm so intrigued. I can't say this one is my favorite fundamentally, but it greatly intrigues me. Screenshot 10. Oh, this one is actually giving us a better view of that cupboard from before. Lots of jars of preserves in there, each of them perfectly mismatched with a fabric topper. Like, that's the sort of whimsy and craft that actually takes more effort than just making them all with identical fabric, you know? Like, she had to work to make those mismatched. Kelly has a nice red and green theme here. There's warm candlelight, dark wood. This is the kind of color scheme that's definitely venturing toward my vintage log cabin aesthetic. I want to be the kind of person who can own these tall candlesticks, but I don't understand where the wax goes. You guys know what I'm talking about? When I'm lighting my Bath and Body Works candles, they're just like self-contained in the little jar, you know? When they melt, they just like make a little pool and they're just like dripping into their own filth. But when it's a tall candlestick, does it just drip down onto my table? And then what? Do I have to like scrape the wax off? I'm just confused. I like the aesthetic. I just want to know how you do it. Screenshot 11. We're back outside. I love this vibe. It's very folklore. This is the kind of person I genuinely don't know if secular music is allowed in their home, though. Screenshot 12. Kelly has leaned over a freestanding little farmhouse sink next to an open cupboard of mismatched plates and cups. There is a pine cone garland in the background. Red hair with red shirt and orange skirt, and a mug in her hand. This picture is all about the quality of light. She's positioned herself at the sink, like so that she's being illuminated by the dappled window light of late afternoon. That was very intentional of her. I'll admit that at first glance, I thought this might have been a homesteader laboring at home before the tub birth sort of photo, just like based on the position. It's not. Kelly is not pregnant. She has 2 kids. She said she wants like 6. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the situation. Now the open cupboard door here feels like an intentional choice to make the scene feel disheveled, but the jars on the top of the cupboard feel genuine, and I like that. We all have random stuff that's 90% empty up on top of a kitchen cabinet, and I appreciate the representation of that. Let clutter be. Not all of us have butler's pantries to hide it all away in. Okay, almost done. Screenshot 13. This one is just nice. Look at the vibrancy, look at the colors, and look at the joy. I love that Kelly just has a regular face. She's not in makeup, and she's so enthusiastically admiring berries. I want the kind of scarf that she's wearing. It's like that really cute shape, even though I know it wouldn't match any of my wardrobe. Okay, last one. Screenshot 14. Look at her. Is this not the most Molly Weasley scene you've ever encountered? This humble, cluttered, warm, cozy scene with knitting needles and a black kitten in hand? This picture gets bingo for featuring all the best homesteader emojis in real life. There's candle basket and books. Actually, even better than the comparison to Molly Weasley is the 1997 film The Borrowers. The teeny tiny people with red hair. Wait, oh my gosh, compare this photo with this photo from The Borrowers. The mom isn't actually in this picture, but all of the film stills from this Borrowers movie are drenched in the glow of orange light, just like Kelly's pictures. These are red-headed 4-inch tall people wearing red. They are knitting, and they are generally using and wearing the same textiles as regular inches tall Kelly. Famously, this is Tom Felton's first film role, pre-Harry Potter. This is yet another vibrant example that British people do all the movies. 3 degrees from Kevin Bacon in the UK is just called 1 degree from Jim Broadbent. You know? But he'll always be Harold Ziedler to me. Wait, I just realized that in the Borrowers family, not only do you have Tom Felton, i.e. Draco Malfoy, as the son, and Jim Broadbent, i.e. Professor Slughorn, as the dad, you also have the Exterminator, played by Mark Williams, i.e. Arthur Weasley. Wow, so saying that Kelly's knitting with a cat photo had Molly Weasley energy had many more layers than initially realized. The fact that the male leading cast of the Borrowers have all gone on to have flourishing careers in some of the biggest movies of a generation, while the female leads, the mom and the daughter, are virtually unrecognizable, is a bummer. It's a bummer. It's harder to be a female in Hollywood, you know? The 4-inch-tall Borrower family has fantastic names, by the way. The names in the aesthetic are one. They are cohesive. Dad is Podclock. Oh, Podclock. I hope his wife calls him Potty Clock. Her name is Homily Clock. Daughter is Arietti. Wait, oh. The Miyazaki movie, The Secret Life of Arietti, is The Borrowers. They're just different film adaptations by the same story, written by Emily Norton in 1952. IMDb, yeah, the main characters have the same names. Really different vibes, though. I've actually seen The Secret Life of Arietti much more recently than The Borrowers, and it's very charming. If you were to ask me, what's the most pleasant movie where virtually nothing bad happens and I can just enjoy a delightful, calm visual journey? Without a hesitation, I would say Miyazaki's The Secret World of Arietti. Absolutely. Every time. There's almost no plot, but like in the best way possible. Now, in the English-dubbed Miyazaki movie, the mom and dad are, oh boy, Amy Poehler and Will Arnett, who are now divorced. That's a bummer. Let's go back to the Borrowers. The daughter is Arietti, and the son, played by Draco Malfoy, is Pea Green Clock. Oh, good. That's very good. Pea Green? Come back to screenshot 6 and live in an alternate reality with me where this woman has a son named Pea Green. Oh, that feels so right. That feels so right. Of course this woman with this aesthetic is the mother of Pea Green Clock. In comparison with the typical homeschool, homestead content, this brings me so much joy. It just so much more closely aligns with what my eyes enjoy. And I also acknowledge that Kelly uses hashtag feminine not feminist and hashtag traditional gender roles. When I click these hashtags and look at any of their posts from around the gram, every single one of them is obviously terrible. Even the least offensive of these posts, such as one by Rachel, who is a Catholic wife and mama, has put hashtag feminine not feminist and hashtag biblical womanhood on a picture of her family smiling in a pool in Palm Beach, Florida, with a caption that's a quote that says, "The most extraordinary thing in the world is an ordinary man and an ordinary woman and their ordinary children." Like, yeah, I get it. The caption, "getting some vitamin C," is done and dead, but if I ever go on a tropical vacation and share something so utterly boring, please put me in my royal blue canoe and set me adrift. That's unforgivable. To be so boring. You're right, that is exceptionally ordinary, Rachel. Now, maybe that's what the root of it honestly is. Boring. Why do I say yes to vintage log cabin aesthetic, but say no to prairie homesteader aesthetic? Why am I enchanted by Kelly's use of candles, baskets, and books, while I didn't feel the same way about many of the beige influencers who use those same things? Both groups use hashtags with major red flags all over the place. Maybe because when it's just beige, gray, white walls, and minimalism, it's also boring. Historically, white people on the American prairie lands were tight-laced, hard-working Christians who would not listen to folklore by Taylor Swift. But up in those log cabins in the mountains, different vibe. It's Paul Bunyan. It's all 7 brothers of 7 brides for 7 brothers. It's Theodore freaking Roosevelt visiting Yellowstone with his sturdy little belly and his pants tucked into his knee-high boots, his little neckerchief. If you know any Instagram accounts that would be considered vintage log cabin aesthetic, please let me know. Like, seriously, let me know. I'm looking for more of that in my life right now. But in the meantime, I'll just continue to light my jar candles from Bath & Body Works. Now, I always end Doodle Talk with a doodle prompt and it's an idea for something you should draw on paper, because I do think phones are generally destroying our brains most of the time. So, okay, let's keep this simple, because this was the most complex Doodle Talk of all time. The Doodle Talk was literally just me talking about this. I didn't do any other topics. I just talked about the doodle. Okay, so let's keep it simple this time. Draw a picture of a candle that is your ideal scent. If you could make any candle smell in the world, what would it be? Okay, bye.